Hey, yeah, hey, I know it's been a while, especially considering I promised to upload more. However, I'm back with way more than I thought I could ever bring to the table. So, probably been wondering where have I been for the past few months after the last upload saying, oh, I'm going to upload more. Yeah, that didn't hold up, now did it? Have been streaming though, and streaming's been going okay. So, probably saw the video title and you're like, what the fuck is this guy on about, right? What do you mean new series? Oh, well, to put it simply, and this time I do mean I'm going to upload more often, as recording sessions will be happening every week. And that's because, as I'm sure some of you might well know, I am a huge Power Rangers fan. I even have a 1993 Dragon Dagger signed by Jason David Frank. May rest in peace. But for the past 2 years, I've been sitting on an idea that I've played with for a bit. Kind of just molded it in my head and then just evolved it. This idea was for a Power Rangers series that, much like Time Force, had to do with time travel, but in regards to how it was done, was a bit different. You see, in the 2001 series of Time Force, the entire point of it was you would have this agency of sorts, and they had their own teams, man-made powers. Not a bad idea. Great season. One of the best ones. We got some of the best acting out of it. Of course, Eric Myers, beloved character in the series. Quantum Ranger, always been a fun one. Not to mention, it was played by Dan Southworth, aka the guy who played Virgil in the DMC games. Now, that being said, this idea is a little bit darker. You see, I took inspiration from both the comics and the series, as well as some unused Sentai footage and whatnot. So, the idea. Originally it was dubbed Temporal Defenders. Temporal Defenders, of course, being because of the time travel aspect. And eventually it got redubbed to Deity Force. It just made a bit more sense, roll off the tongue nicer, and it made a bit more sense because of how they got their powers. In this case, the powers were granted by gods who would designate Rangers as their avatars. And originally, 5-Ranger team. Basic, most Sentais had that, and that's what led to most of the Power Rangers teams having that. I brought a lot from a lot of things for this, and not just from the comics and the show, but I even took a little bit of liberty and added in some other universes that I find quite enjoyable. And the fact of that being that it works really well, especially when you make them into a homebrew team like I have. But a couple years ago, as I was sitting on this idea and it was really formulating in my head, I found a video talking about the Hyperforce Rangers. Now, the Hyperforce Rangers, of course, being the very popular and extremely canon, surprisingly, D&D style series that they did on Twitch. Officially licensed, Hasbro had they did everything they could. They brought in a bunch of people for it, and it was a lot of fun. And I saw that they did that, and I thought to myself, why stop at just the concept in my head? Why not take it further and make it into a D&D campaign? So, the premise, if you will. Kronos, the god of time, also, of course, known as Cronus, of Greek mythology, the Titan who ate its children, was defeated by Zeus. They, much like, are considered the highest form of god because they control the timeline. And they saw a prophecy in which they would destroy time itself. Now, that didn't make sense to them, because while Kronos had its flaws and his evil moments in the past in all mythos, much like how the Bible depicts humans as being derived from made in God's likeness, it is the same situation as this. Meaning that, yes, Kronos is flawed. But at the same time, at the end of the day, there's enough good in him where he was willing to do what it took to stop this prophecy becoming true. However, in doing so, he fulfilled it himself. What I mean by that is he did not destroy time itself by doing this, but he split himself in two, creating a light half and a dark half. The darker half seeks to destroy the universe and time as we know it, to change history to such a degree that everything breaks down and stops. Kronos, the lighter half that is, creates a pocket dimension where by using his power, mind you, he cannot control what it affects personally, but by using his power, he is able to pull in bits and bobs of different parts of the world, of different worlds, different universes at different times. But that also means that sometimes people get sucked in too. Now, as I mentioned before, the Rangers have their gods, the ones they are the avatars of. Kronos cannot pick an avatar, and as such, requires someone to help spread what he's trying to do to those who will listen. And that's where we come in with Mayor Tolan Barnes, a multi-PhD holding professor of an esteemed college. Unfortunately, due to an accident he had several years back that cost him his life, his wife, his child, and his ability to walk, he was on a slippery slope. And as such, when he was pulled in, agreed to do this because it not only confirmed many of the theories he had, but it also confirmed that there was still something for him in this world, in his life. Now, where does that leave the Rangers in this situation? Originally, this run started with two. One, a car salesman from the year 2019 of San Antonio, Texas. The other, a member of a rat-like race that the monster from Ninja Steel, Rat Trap, was a part of. In this one's case, chainsaw is removed and works in a library in the year 2025. Through the ritual of god bonding, which requires them to drink a tea created from a mushroom grown with the blood of gods, they bonded with the god that they were chosen by. In that regard, the gods have to choose someone to be their avatar eventually. By having an avatar, you are guaranteed at least one believer in you, and by having that believer in you, you continue to exist as a god. Because what originally started as a 5-ranger team that I had a concept of became, here's a bunch of colors, and here's a bunch of gods that are associated with those colors. And from there, that's where this began. 2 rangers working with this mayor of this Maj Paz city. You start asking yourself, wait, well, Nate's there. He's a Power Ranger. And if there are others, why can't they do something? Well, it's because of how the time bubble works. You see, it's got a couple of rules. The first one being no one can go home until Dark Kronos is taken care of. So everyone's kind of stuck there. The second being that unless you have access to the deital energies, energies from a deity that help make up the sphere, unfortunately, you cannot morph. And as such, most rangers are rendered inept in that regard. They are still obviously very capable, as we all know, but without the morphing capabilities, that means no Zords. If a weapon, it's usually one they can't just materialize in their hand. They have to have it physically. So in that regard, most of the rangers that do exist within here can't do much, but there is some leeway with that rule. And what I mean by leeway with that rule is pretty simple. As we all know, Super Mega Force requires them to use keys of past, future, and various rangers from across the multiverse. That would, in this case, include the Deity Force Rangers. And in that regard, those keys can be used just fine. Because the way I've always seen it, and again, and I don't know if I've mentioned this already, but I take a little bit of liberty with the lore because there's a lot of stuff the show doesn't explain, a lot of stuff the comics doesn't explain, and there's a lot of stuff that just never made any sense that never got explained. And as such, I seek to fill in the gaps, as it were. And that's where we get things like the 2 Super Mega Force originals I've made. Super Mega Force Black, who was based on a bunch of fan designs that I've did the best I can to merge into one concise, perfect design. And Super Mega Force Gold, who is suits straight out of Sentai Zenkaiger. If you know Two Kaiser, you know who it is. You can get the suit idea. And even the character is a lot like that. However, the character would not just straight up be the same character. It would be very different in certain regards. those two acting as very main NPCs that will always, they basically act as a cleanup crew if something big goes down in their battles. More recently, we had the introduction of a third player who has really shaken things up in the best way possible. There were some events that were not going to happen until certain things were taken care of. And because of that, it has led into some very interesting situations. So, I should get you all up, because the session, unfortunately, has been going on for a while. And with that in mind, that means there's some stuff that won't make sense unless you know. To begin, I've already filled you in how the rules work, the concept of this series. In fact, the first two players have built a nice little bond with their characters. From first being transported into this mosh podge of a city and fighting their first couple of monsters, to adopting a kid some orphan kid they found in 1912, to taking down a time-lost enemy, which more on them in a couple of videos from now, when the Rangers have to fight another time-lost enemy. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. But, not just that, but they've even met some very memorable faces. As I said before, I took from both comics and the show. Meaning that, yes, indeed, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Justice League even could show up. And in this case, they did meet Michelangelo. Now, mind you, while it is the same Michelangelo from the comics who has met the Power Rangers, this is also an amalgamation of that Michelangelo and the last Ronin. Meaning that, unfortunately, he's the last of the four. And as I said, the aforementioned Super Mega Gold and Black. On top of that, they've actually gotten some fun gear. As I said before, there are plenty of homebrew teams, meaning that if they're based on a certain franchise, they can't exist. So they've got a couple of little weapons under their belt, along with their own unique weapons. Weapons that I will go into during the sessions, and you'll see the videos of that. So, where does that leave us in terms of Third Ranger? Well, the Third Ranger comes in. And as a Miranoian warrior, so you already know, jungle life, physical expertise, and for what it's worth, probably one of the more interesting characters I've had the pleasure of having to DM a game that includes. This trio, I cannot even begin to tell you how much fun it's been to work with them, because their characters' chemistry is so fucking good. More recently, in the latest session, one of the Rangers kept a little secret, one they should have shared with the other two. You see, about a session before that, they got into a massive fight with a couple of generals of the Big Bad's army. One almost died, and the other had a bad tendency of bringing that child they had adopted everywhere they went, even if they didn't think they were going to be in harm's way. As such, they were led to believe that the child had been kidnapped. And while two continued to believe that, one found out that was not the case, and had instead been rescued. I really don't know how to describe it. The child had basically wandered off from the hiding spot that they had been designated to stay in. And this shopkeep NPC known as the Collector, you will meet him, you will find out a lot about him in the upcoming sessions, found her, brought her back to his shop, and when one went to get information to try and find her, found out she wasn't kidnapped, and she had instead wandered off. They did not inform the mayor. They did not inform the other members of the team. Instead, they had chosen to keep it to themselves. And because of that, when the team found out, it did not end well. You would think, oh, he just kept it from them. Maybe they'd just be mad. Unfortunately, that was not the only problem. By keeping it from them, the mayor made a deal that he thought would work out in best interest for everyone. offering himself up as a prisoner in exchange for the girl. It did not go as you would plan, obviously, because the villains never actually took her. So now the mayor's missing. And they find out that they've been lied to by someone they were supposed to be working with. So, confrontation is had. A fight breaks out. And the villains see an opportunity to recruit a ranger to their side. And as such, the one who had betrayed the others was pulled from the sphere by those who follow Dark Kronos. Left mentorless, and only with the various rangers across the city to teach them what they can combat-wise, the rangers now must find a way to not only save them, but deal with the current general of all of Dark Kronos' armies. After a few of his attempts to send minor monsters out didn't work, Dark Kronos enlisted the help of Ivan Ooze from his egg, and now has him commanding his armies. Ivan was the one who orchestrated the brainwashing and almost near deaths of the Super Mega Force Black and Gold Rangers, which is what led to them meeting the Rangers and becoming a part of their team. He orchestrated attacks on London, the beginnings of everything. Ivan is a mastermind in this universe. He's supposed to live up to the hype I had set up. Well, that not I had set up, that they set up in the movie. And as such, this Ivan is much more cunning and crafty. And that might be because he used to be an avatar of Loki. Do with that information what you will. More of it will be explained in the coming sessions. But brings up a good question, doesn't it? What's the coming sessions? Well, you have to first of all subscribe, like this video so I know to keep going. I'm gonna keep going either way, but it helps. Pushes up in the algorithm, you know. We have an opportunity here as a community to make something amazing happen. And this is probably one of my pet projects that I will die by. I wanted to make something that was customizable, replayable, and I think I did. And the best part is that replayability can build into the lore. More on that definitely coming. But hey, what's a campaign without its players, right? So, sit back, relax, and let's meet our lovely players and learn about their Rangers in Power Rangers Deity Force.
Hey, I'm Josh. I play Davith of Miranoi, the Deity Force Black Ranger.
So if you were to describe your character in one word for the listeners, what would you describe him as?
Davith is a warrior.
Well, what exactly does that entail then?
Well, how do I want to put it? Davith, like I said, he's a warrior. He's all about doing the mission, doing what needs to be done. He fights to protect everyone.
Alright, well here's a little bit of a follow-up one to that, because going off script a little bit here, but might as well, considering your answer. What comes first to him then? The mission or his team? Is he willing to jeopardize the mission in order to save his team?
Needs of the many.
Interesting. Well, with that
It's a difficult question. Because I want to say he wouldn't, but at the same time, it depends.
Depends on what exactly.
How grave the result would be. Is it world ending? Timeline ending? Then he's probably going to have to sacrifice people. And it might seem cruel, but a whole timeline for one person.
Okay. So, when it comes to the trio of Rangers that are in this little story, What do you think yours brings to the table?
Besides the fact that he's not doing insane stunts all the time.
Well, I mean, you gotta think of it this way. I mean, at least from what I can tell, you've got the brains, the face. Is all he bring is the only thing he bring the brawn, or does he bring something else?
Davis is, I guess you could say he's a natural born leader. If you want somebody to lead people into battle, it's Davis. Where Rhythm is the guy you want if you want to plan, and Nezu is the guy you want if you want to outthink somebody.
So, this one's a bit of a tough one. But if there was one actor, like just one actor that you would want in a live action scenario to play Death, who would it be? And if you would rather see if this would go in an animated direction, if you have like a voice actor you know of that you think would be a better fit, that's also an option.
Richard Madden.
That's good. It's a good choice. Really good choice. What about the voice actor front? You got anything for that?
Did I say Nolan North? Nolan North.
I mean, Nolan North would definitely probably work. I can see it. I can see it. So, take your character out of the situation of this, do or die, save the timeline, or everything goes to shit. Take that out for a moment. And what does he value above everything else?
What he values the most probably is going to be his honor, his duty.
Makes sense. Warrior, duty bound. Definitely has the qualities you would need for someone like that. Here's a question. As the avatar of Fenrir, where do you think Davif stands with his god? Like, what type of relationship would you describe theirs as?
I think they have a good relationship. But then again, they don't really interact. Fenrir's mostly there. He's like, hey, I'm here if you need me. Otherwise, I'm just going to take a nap.
So what you're saying is that Daviv doesn't really go to his god as much as maybe he should.
Probably. He probably should go to him more, but Daviv, he doesn't think he really... I mean, he appreciates Finn. But does he think he can fight without Finn?
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay. That's totally understandable. I mean, being a warrior again, before getting sucked into all this, he probably obviously does have that combat experience as is. So, out of everything that could possibly come from this little adventure into saving the timeline, if Daviv were to look at this in a long term, like let's say he was thinking past the point of, okay, we've saved everything, everything's going to go back to normal. What would he be hoping to get out of this adventure?
Nothing. That's the maybe combat experience, more combat experience, but other than that, he really doesn't want anything. He agreed to sign up because, well, if I don't sign up, a lot of people are going to die. And it is my duty to protect them.
Alright. Just one more for you then. Out of the three of you that are on the team currently, out of the three characters that are on the team, do you think Daviv has the best chance of surviving it?
From a pure combat standpoint, yes. Now, from a survivability standpoint, Rhythm probably has the best chance because he could probably just, get away. Davith would fight it straight up.
I know I said one more, but there is one more final question I think I should probably ask. Not just for my own curiosity, but also just because it feels like an appropriate question to ask. Davith, as a ranger, being a ranger, knowing that he has the abilities he does, what do you think is most likely to kill him? What would you consider his fatal flaw?
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. Davith probably has a hero complex to the point that he's gonna try to save everyone, and that's probably what would kill him.
Hey, I go by the studio guy online, and right now I'm playing Nazumi Tori Chinso, the white Deity 4th Ranger.
So, I've asked the other two this. Now I get to ask you. If you had to describe Nezu in a single word, what would it be?
A single word. I guess the basis of what I built his character off of would be arrogance.
You think you can elaborate on that for us?
So, every single one of my characters that I play are parts of myself. I take one character trait and extrapolate that into its own character. This one, I decided to take arrogance as a flaw I see in myself often, but one I thought I could explore in this character. He thinks he's right. He thinks he's good and righteous, this sense of justice that makes him unwilling or unable to see any other point of view.
So, with that in mind, obviously that being a big problem considering the character has to work with others, what would you say he brings to the table in that regard then? Because, obviously the others clearly are bringing something here, but what's Nezu got on board?
Nezu, I gave him a very high intelligence to sort of back up this arrogance as a snobby know-it-all who really thinks he should be the leader as he knows more than all the other teammates combined.
Well, that being said, of course, the intelligence definitely helps. I mean, considering Rhythm obviously has the charm, as you would expect from any good car salesman, and then obviously Davith being the brawn of the team.
Yeah.
I will ask, though, let's say series, for some reason, blows the fuck up. You know what I mean? Just explodes in popularity. Hasbro takes notice, and instead of DMCAing me...
Oh, no.
Hold on, let me finish. But, let's just say, they do, whatever, and instead of DMCAing me, they offer to turn it into a season. Animated, live action, doesn't matter. Who would you think would make a perfect fit to play Nesby?
Whoever played the original Trapthal would probably just bring him back. Just let him reprise his role.
Give him sort of the treatment that Boom and Mechanics actor got when he came back. It's like all those characters, including Mechanic. All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, all right. Bottom line, cards on the table here. What do they value above all else? Like, at the end of the day, even if it jeopardizes the mission, what are they going to put the most value on?
Well, as of right now, it would be the child. His adopted orphan daughter he saved from the Titanic.
A copy of Titanic, to be fair, but you know what? Fair enough. I mean, like, seriously, like, I meant more so in, like, a abstract thought type of thing, but that's actually kind of sweet. So you know what? That actually works really well. This one I think I know the answer to, but I would love to hear your wording of it. How would you describe his relationship with Khonshu?
Oh, dysfunctional at best. To elaborate on that point, he is kind of aware, or at least under the impression, that Khonshu needs his help a lot more than he needs Khonshu. Even though, in reality, Khonshu has saved his ass, like, multiple times, so he definitely does need him, but...
mean, to be fair, you do have you're close in saying that he does need Nezu. I mean, there's a reason for it, and I think the viewers are going to get a kick out of the reasoning once time goes on. Now, let's say end of the journey, insight. You know it's going to work out. Your character's like, all right, cool, we're almost done. Once this is done, what is it they're hoping to get out of this little adventure? I mean, hey, like,
I don't know. I don't know, and I don't think he knows either. Like, the way he was given this information, it didn't sound like there was a future beyond rangering.
well, what I mean is, like, I'm saying, like, obviously the evil Kronos is taken care of. Everything's safe. Time is no longer in major jeopardy. You know what I mean? Like, and after that, well, what is he, like, he signed up for this because he knew he was trying to make a difference, but if he was going to get anything else out of it, what would he want?
Not to go into spoiler territory or anything, but he'd probably want his own timeline.
Definitely understandable.
Not as like I'm going to be the god emperor of this entire timeline, not like a Kang type situation, but more of like a Marty McFly, this is my perfect timeline.
Okay, fair enough. No, that's totally understandable. So, hey, here's a good question. I've asked Rhythm. Rhythm says it's probably because, his character doesn't know a lot in terms of combat. In Daviv's case, Josh said that Daviv just is too dedicated to the mission. What would you say is the fatal flaw of Nezu? Like, what would get him killed? I have a feeling...
Other than the aforementioned arrogance. Well, I mean, you've already used his protection of the child against him like twice.
You say twice. I say and counting.
Hello, my name is Rhythm, and I play the character Rhythm, and I am the Jade Ranger.
So, if you had to describe your character in one word, what would it be?
Strategist.
Care to explain, or...
Well, he technically more feels along the lines of that he is the strategist, and more lines of because he's starting to think things on the fly. He's already has plans made out,
right,
to try and get the mission done as fast as possible if he can.
Okay. And do you think it always works for him, or do you think it's just a case of if it works, it works, and then he has to make a new plan if it doesn't?
If it works, it works. If it doesn't, make a new one on the fly.
That's fair enough. So, obviously, you got the brains in Nezu, and you have, Daviv being the strong one, the leader. What does that leave for your character to bring to the table?
I would believe that he would think that he is technically another version of a leader. Like, if Daviv cannot be the leader then and there, he can probably take up that mantle just in case.
And you think he would do a better job? A similar job?
Oh, definitely not a better job. I can guarantee you that he probably won't do very well in a very good leader position, but if he needs to take over, he'll take over.
Sort of like a bullshit it until you make it type thing, huh?
Pretty much.
So, let's say Wild Blue Yonder, instead of hitting me but a cease and desist, let's say this blows up, Hasbro notices it, they want to turn it into a season. Now, is there any actor or voice actor you could really see portraying your character?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like other people would have... I can't really think of one off the top of my head, maybe. Maybe the one... Well, if he was alive, maybe the one that played Tommy in the original Power Rangers.
Jason David Frank, definitely. I feel like he could definitely fill the shoes of your character. Rest in peace to a legend, of course, but like if he was alive, if this was back in '93 and he was still a kid, I could definitely see him filling that role of a 19-year-old car salesman.
Yeah,
from,
maybe.
from San Antonio, Texas. So, with that in mind, let's say, you know, they're not in this dire situation. You're not in the situation where your next move could be your last move. You could be attacked by a monster, ripped apart, blown up, burnt alive. Well, what is it that your character values above everything else?
Protection for everyone he knows. Could be his friends, could be his teammates. It could be the area he lives in.
So, despite the whole silver tongue, lie your way to victory strategy, he still has that bit of a hero in him.
Pretty much. He believes that if need be, fuck the mission, keep everyone safe.
Now, that in mind, knowing how he acts towards the people around him, where does that leave his relationship with Loki?
His relationship with Loki, I can state it as like a sibling relationship, or two good best friends
Mm-hmm.
meeting after like a year of without seeing each other.
So always a party and someone's always drunk.
Yes,
Yeah, sounds about right.
mostly Loki.
Yeah, more than likely, considering he's not old enough to drink yet. So, let's say, you see the finish line. Character's about to get out of all of this. Ends in sight, knows he's going to be able to do it. What is he hoping to get out of this? Like, what is he hoping to achieve, to gain, to perfect in his time on this journey?
See, in most cases with superheroes, it's always like, oh, the guy gets the girl, or the world is saved once again.
Mm-hmm.
For him, it's just a fact of like, once it's done, it's done.
So he's not,
because people will remember people will remember him as the hero that he is. But he knows once again when the time arises, he'll need to rise up more.
So he's not so much looking for something to get out of this, but rather he's well aware that this probably won't be the last time he's needed.
Pretty much.
So,
After all, he does want to keep Chronos City pretty much safe.
mm-hmm. So, out of everything that you know about your character, everything you've created for him, what is the one flaw in him that would probably get him killed?
His strength. He's not all that strong, really.
So it's not really an emotional or personality problem, it's more so he literally just does not lift.
I wouldn't say he doesn't lift. Is the fact that you need to remember he is a strategist. He wants to figure out ways of doing the mission, or figuring out different ways of doing it that doesn't require him to be on the attack almost all the time. Like, yeah, his weapon is pretty strong, but what's a strong weapon without a strong person?
I definitely see what you mean with that. So, you've met your Rangers. Studio, Rhythm, and Josh. An absolute perfect trifecta. And they, as their Rangers, and myself, as your Game Master, welcome you to the world of Power Rangers Deity Force. Scheduling? Well, to tell you the truth, the first episode should be up by Sunday. If not, do not fret, it will only be a couple days after that. I'm going to do my best to get this editing done. We'll have a lovely piece of art for you to gaze upon throughout the video. I apologize for the length of this one, and I am going to warn you these episodes are going to be long, which is why it takes me about a week to get through them. So, sit back and relax. Because for the next few months, I'd say, you guys are going to be in for a more phenomenal time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tells me what to do, pushes up an algorithm, and, again, makes this video worth watching. See ya!